The lifeless remains of a teen girl were uncovered in a landfill just outside town. Her loved ones immediately suspected the man who had stalked her for years, and later he openly wept at her memorial service. Marbella Valdez entered this world in 1999 in Tijuana, Mexico, and faced immense hardship from the start. Her birth parents left her to fend for herself, and she bounced between various foster families as a child. At the shelter, she formed an unbreakable bond with Brenda, an older girl who became the sister she never had. At age 16, destiny brought Marbella under the care of William Messick, who directed a local orphanage. Though he never made her adoption official, Marbella saw him as her father, and he treated her with paternal affection. He was married with kids of his own, and Marbella excelled in her studies, eventually enrolling in law school to advocate for abused and neglected women. She balanced work at the gas station to finance her studies, as well as board in a flat nearer to campus, aided by William, who footed her lease. Outside the university, Marbella lent her vocals to the parish choir, though her schedule was almost always full. However, on the 5th of February, she failed to clock in for her 6 a.m. shift. When her colleague rang, Marbella reported feeling under the weather and hastily hung up, her tone fearful. At 9 a.m., a text from Marbella reached Brenda, citing illness and plans to visit the doctor, but repeated calls went unanswered. Concerned for her well-being, Brenda rallied another friend, and they traveled to Marbella's home, finding the entrance locked fast with no reply forthcoming. They spied an ajar window and climbed inside, but she was nowhere to be found. Brenda informed William straight away, and together they commenced a search for Marbella, who had also neglected to appear at the hospital. A troubled call from her co-worker only amplified anxiety regarding her disappearance. Neither medical centers nor the college could offer any information on Marbella's whereabouts. Brenda likewise contacted their numerous mutual acquaintances, yet none knew of her location or condition. Marbella left home early that morning, but failed to reach her destination or contact her family. Concern grew as the day wore on with no news of the missing girl. That evening, her family reported her disappearance to the local authorities and asked for volunteers to help with the investigation. The police investigation began, checking Marbella's usual routines and interviewing everyone who knew her in the hope of finding clues to her whereabouts. Her boyfriend Juan, like everyone else, was puzzled by her absence. A search of Marbella's apartment found it undisturbed, with no sign of a hasty departure. Days passed without resolution. Hospitals had no record of Marbella arriving for medical treatment. Repeated attempts to ping her mobile phone proved fruitless, shielding any means of geolocating the device. Investigators postulated that her disappearance occurred sometime after dawn, but before the workday began in earnest. On the third day after her disappearance, a member of the community scouring the landfill noticed an unusually large black package. Curiosity drew them closer, and they alerted the police when they realized the inexplicable presence of the bag. Officers arrived promptly and opened the container to find Marbella's bound and lifeless form, dressed in sleeping clothes. Bright red curls and orthodontic appliances matched known details of the missing girl. Forensic experts determined that the battered body was indeed that of 20-year-old Marbella Valdez. Her abdomen was covered in bruises from violent blows, she was bleeding internally, and suffocation was the cause of death. Particles and DNA of her killer were found under her fingernails. Male bodily fluids were taken for analysis. Detectives investigated Marbella's murder intensively, meticulously searching her flat and car for clues. They discovered tracking devices planted in the car's intricate mechanisms. Investigators re-interviewed intimates to identify any suspicious figures fixated on her, perhaps stalking her movements. According to William Messick, from the summer of 2019, a lover gave her affectionate gifts of flowers, candy, and stuffed animals. The gifts filled her home, although the giver remained a secret, as revealing them would incur the disapproval of William Messick. Friends disclosed that Marbella was pursued by Juan, a 36-year-old man who frequented her gas station solely to admire her from afar. They crossed paths when he stopped to fuel his vehicle and was instantly charmed by her exquisite beauty and cheerful demeanor. Juan became a devoted customer, only making purchases on shifts when he knew Marbella would be working the pumps. In the mornings, he brought croissants and coffee for Marbella, as well as her co-workers, showing care through modest gestures without forward flirtation. He acted as an ally, yet gradually began lavishing her with small gifts. Despite Marbella maintaining a respectful distance and not reciprocating his feelings, she found solace in the compliments and attention lavished upon her by the kind-hearted Juan. Marbella enjoyed her new job and colleagues, finding purpose and camaraderie among them. However, one man, Juan, pursued her affection insistently. Though married with children, he professed deep feelings for Marbella and asked for her hand. She declined gently, seeking stability rather than complication. But Juan wouldn't relent, appearing wherever she went, as if tracking her movements. Perplexed, as they knew each other only through work, Marbella began to feel uneasy. Her boyfriend later received threats should he remain by Marbella's side. Concerned friends urged her to petition for distance from Juan legally. Yet Marbella saw goodness in him and hoped this strange behavior would pass. Police focused their search on Juan, suspecting him of increasing threats. On Valentine's Day, Marbella Memorial was held as investigations continued. There, Juan arrived grief-stricken with flowers and scrawled skin, distressing loved ones with fresh wounds. Questions outweighed answers as the case unfolded. By this time, Marbella's nearest and dearest were well aware that the long arm of the law had their eye on him as a person of interest, finding him less than pleasant to be around. However, they were careful to keep such suspicions to themselves so as not to potentially obstruct the official inquiry or cause him to make himself scarce before being brought in for questioning. When the authorities secured the necessary warrant, a thorough search of Juan's premises turned up some items of a disturbing nature, namely, a full police uniform, including cap and regulation footwear stashed away in his place of residence. Juan's past was more complex than initially appeared. Though once serving dutifully as an intern and officer, desires emerged pulling him towards deception. He retained his uniform, using it to mimic authority and mask malintent. Within his home's walls, secrets were uncovered. 2 phones and tracking apps pinpointing Marbella's location, both before her disappearance and after. Computers too held clues, messages read without consent, and activities pursued prohibited by law. Detectives pieced together a disturbing chain of events. Juan had been keeping watch through devices and profiles, learning her patterns. On that fateful night, his presence was noted for lengthy hours within her home. Then in darkness, 3 phones moved in tandem, 2 belonging to the suspect and 1 to the missing woman. Her belonging was later found alongside her body in a remote area, the phone's trail ending there. Deductions led police to believe Juan had waited until she slept, exploiting a spare key to stealthily enter and take her against her will. The desperate man found his life spiraling out of control. In a moment of weakness and poor judgment, he took Marbella to his ramshackle abode, where he inflicted unspeakable harm upon her fragile form. Overcome by rage and sorrow, his hands found purchase around her delicate neck as blackness clouded his vision. When clarity returned, only horror and remorse remained. Feebly, he dragged her lifeless body to the outskirts of town and concealed it amongst the refuse, hoping against hope that his heinous act might somehow be erased. Unfortunately for the distraught man, true evil leaves traces that cannot be removed. His DNA was swiftly matched to samples retrieved from her broken nails and torn flesh, sealing his gruesome fate. Despite proclamations of innocence, the mountains of evidence spoke only of unimaginable cruelty. Now, as the judicial process crawls forward amid ongoing health risks, 50 years of solitude seem to be his just deserts for extinguishing so bright a light. Though the punishment is rightly severe, only time will tell if any leniency remains for one overcome by such shadows of the soul. Marbella's friend Brenda felt immense rage towards the police force. It came to light that on the fateful day Marbella vanished without a trace, Brenda had divulged to detectives Juan's unsettling stalking behavior, yet they dismissed her concerns without consideration. Brenda holds the police responsible for not promptly inspecting Juan's home. If they had investigated his residence shortly after her disclosure, there was a chance they could have found Marbella still alive and rescued her from whatever sinister fate had befallen her. Another of Marbella's close companions, an elder law student, also recently recalled a disturbing conversation she had with Marbella just before she disappeared without explanation. Marbella was anxious to meet up on that ill-fated day to discuss women's rights legislation and seek the companion's sage legal counsel, showing she recognized she required aid to protect herself, but sadly assistance came too late. Marbella became the 17th female murdered in Mexico throughout 2020, marking yet another life taken far too soon. According to data, 940 women lost their lives last year alone in the volatile nation. To honor Marbella and all those whose lives were stolen through violence, a poignant portrait was painted upon a wall to represent the nameless faces of victims. William Messick took action amidst the tragedy, offering self-defense lessons free of charge to empower women to protect themselves. As a martial arts master, he personally instructed courses to spread knowledge and provide a sense of safety. I will diligently follow updates from the trial, committed to sharing the outcome far and wide. If this video resonated and you wish to engage further on the crucial issues highlighted, please interact through likes, subscribe, and comment below. Thank you for your time and attention to this important discussion.